On October 14, 2025, the state of Florida brought a decades-long case to its final legal conclusion.
Samuel Lee Smithers, a man once seen as quiet, helpful, and deeply religious, faced the outcome of a process that had followed him for more than 26 years. At 72 years old, Smithers became the oldest individual in modern Florida history to reach this point in the legal system. His name had long been tied to a case that shook the community of Plant City and revealed a life far different from the one people believed they knew.
This story is not only about a crime, it is about trust, perception, and the hidden sides of ordinary lives.
If you want to follow more cases where investigation, law, and human behavior intersect, consider subscribing. It helps us bring you more carefully researched true crime documentaries. Before the investigation began, Samuel Lee Smithers appeared to be the definition of a steady, dependable man.
He served as a deacon at the First Baptist Church in Plant City. He worked as an electrician at Bureau Electric. He lived with his wife and son in a modest neighborhood near Plant City High School. Colleagues described him as polite and methodical.
Neighbors saw nothing unusual. Church members viewed him as deeply committed to his faith. His routines were predictable, his behavior calm, and his reputation solid. A key part of his day-to-day life involved helping a longtime family friend, Marian Whitehurst. She entrusted him with access to her 27-acre property, a gated, fenced area that included 3 ponds and wide stretches of vegetation.
Smithers handled maintenance and groundskeeping. To the community, it seemed like a simple arrangement between trusted acquaintances.
But investigators would later see this property as central to understanding how the case unfolded. Through interviews, logs, and witness statements, law enforcement later discovered that Smithers maintained a highly structured routine. This routine allowed him to control where he was, when he was there, and who had access to the property. He rarely deviated from his daily patterns. He managed his schedule with precision. He presented himself as helpful and reliable in every interaction. These everyday habits, unremarkable at the time, would become crucial when investigators began reconstructing events. They showed how Smithers kept tight control over his surroundings, and how those controlled spaces played a role in the timeline later brought into court. True crime investigators often talk about patterns, small, predictable behaviors that, when examined together, reveal far more than any single action. In Smithers' case, his patterns were part of what made the investigation possible.
On May 12, 1996, Smithers came into contact with Denise Roach, a 24-year-old mother from Tampa.
Investigators later confirmed the two were together on the Whitehurst property that day.
The environment was isolated, and Smithers had full control over access and movement within the area.
Just over 2 weeks later, on May 28, Smithers was seen with another woman, 31-year-old Christy Cowan. Surveillance footage placed them together at a convenience store earlier that evening, establishing a clear visual timeline. Both women's interactions with Smithers occurred in spaces where he determined the flow of events. This consistency, same property, similar timing, and similar control over the environment formed one of the earliest patterns investigators focused on. They did not rely on guesses or assumptions.
They relied on surveillance footage, witness sightings, property conditions, contradictions in Smithers' own statements. Step by step, the picture began to clarify. That same evening, property owner Marian Whitehurst visited her land. She noticed irregularities around the gate, small details, but enough for her to sense something was wrong. When she located Smithers on the property, he appeared calm, but the environment did not look as orderly as usual. Whitehurst contacted the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department. Officer Skolnick arrived later that night and began a systematic inspection of the grounds. On the property, he noticed disturbances near one of the ponds and markings that indicated something had been moved. These findings, combined with the earlier surveillance footage, prompted a deeper inquiry. Investigators questioned Smithers. His explanations were polite, but the details didn't match the physical evidence. Over time, the inconsistencies increased. Each answer raised new questions instead of resolving existing ones. By the end of the night, the pieces of the investigation aligned strongly enough for authorities to move forward. Smithers was taken into custody as the investigation expanded into a full review of his interactions, movements, and timelines. Smithers' trial began in 1998.
In the courtroom, prosecutors presented a timeline built on factual records, surveillance, and witness statements.
They focused on
when Smithers was seen,
who he was with, his control over the property,
the contradictions in his statements. The defense argued that external factors influenced events and attempted to introduce personal history as context. They highlighted Smithers' upbringing, religious background, and work ethic. But the forensic timeline, witness accounts, and documented patterns formed a consistent narrative. After a short deliberation, the jury found Smithers guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder. During sentencing, after reviewing aggravating and mitigating factors, the jury unanimously recommended Florida's highest legal penalty. For the next 26 years, Smithers pursued appeals, legal reviews, and petitions challenging both the conviction and the method of carrying out the sentence.
Courts upheld the original decision each time. On October 14, 2025, Florida officials carried out the sentence after all legal reviews had been exhausted. Smithers declined to give a final statement.
At 72 years old, he became the oldest individual to reach this outcome in modern state history. Officials noted that the procedure was completed according to established protocol and without reported complications. This marked Florida's 14th completed capital case of the year, a significant number in the state's recent history.
The conclusion of Smithers' case represented decades of investigations, legal argument, and judicial review.
For the families involved and for the community of Plant City, it closed a long and difficult chapter. The case of Samuel Lee Smithers reminds us that true crime is rarely about sudden events. It's often about everyday routines, unnoticed details, and people who seem ordinary until the truth emerges. It also highlights the importance of careful investigation, community awareness, and the role of the legal system in uncovering what lies beneath appearances. If you want to continue exploring real cases where evidence, law, and human behavior intersect, remember to subscribe. It helps us create more thoughtful, respectful, and detailed true crime documentaries.
Thank you for watching.